the narrative that most people in the U.S. have digested as far as Crimea goes is that Russia basically invaded and forced its hand and took over Crimea with force. What actually happened in Crimea?
Well, that they took it over by force, but they concealed, you see that there were already Russian bases there by agreement.
Right.
So it was not a
Russian soldiers were always there, right?
Yeah, and there was an agreement on that with Ukraine. And so it was not a difficult thing for them to, especially in 2014, Ukraine was not prepared for a military confrontation with Russia. There were only about 6,000 battle-ready troops in the entire Ukrainian army. They really had no possibility to contest the takeover of Crimea. It would have just been suicide. I mean, they could have contested it, and they decided not to, given the conditions of chaos.
Yeah, which is hence why nobody died.
No one died because the Ukrainians didn't resist,
and
it was carried out. It was carried out with lightning speed, and it was well planned.
So basically, what happened was the Russians came in. They took over They basically held the building, whatever the building was, where the votes were held, and the vote came out as 90% voted.
Well,
that they wanted to be Russian.
Here's the thing: under the conditions of the Maidan revolt, the people in Crimea were Yanukovych voters, by and large, and they're ethnic Russians.
Right.
So the turmoil in Kyiv could definitely affected the mood in Crimea. But and also once the Russians had occupied the place and announced that there was going to be a referendum, well, how can you have a referendum when somebody has annexed a territory and announced a vote under conditions that they control? But even if in fact there was majority sentiment in Crimea, for example, becoming part of Russia.
Right.
That's not the way we change borders.
Right, obviously.
We don't, because there could be majority sentiment in Texas for becoming part of Mexico, and we wouldn't go along with that either.
Right.
The point of world peace is and this has been a fundamental principle since the Second World War, is the respect for international borders. They can be changed, but just not by force. The border, for example, Slovakia separated and became an independent state. It was part of the country called Czechoslovakia. And that was done peacefully by agreement. And the terms were worked out. How it would be. There was a referendum in Scotland about secession from the United Kingdom. So these things can be. But that type of thing is not excluded. Borders that are changed peacefully are consistent with the post World War II consensus.
Well, Crimea. Couldn't you say that Crimea was somewhat peaceful, right? No one got killed. The vote was 90% to go back into Russia. They 90% of them voted to become a part of Russia. And wasn't before that, I'm just being the devil's advocate, but before that, I don't know how long it was, but didn't Russia basically just give Crimea to Ukraine?
It was Nikita Khrushchev who made Crimea part of and that was back in the 50s, part of the Ukrainian Soviet Republic. And when the Soviet Union broke up, the Ukrainian Republic included Crimea, which, by the way, voted for independence for Ukraine in 91.
Okay.
As did Eastern Ukraine. And this is the when any colonial empire, same as Africa or Yugoslavia, any place when it breaks up, people there are lots of anomalies, even injustices. People who belong to one ethnic group find themselves living on the territory of a state that
Right.
is dominated by a different ethnic group, but but those borders are left intact because otherwise you're going to just get what we have, just constant war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as the Russians say, there's a proverb: a bad peace is better than a good war.
It's so wild, just that part of the world, the people in that part of the world. Someone like myself and most people in the U.S. that are my age could never fucking imagine the blood-soaked history that's just ingrained, that must be ingrained and hardwired into the DNA of the people over there.
Well, and that's a good thing that you say that, and that's important for people of your generation and people in the United States in general to keep in mind. There's a reason for we don't have that kind of bloody history. We don't have in our families people who were taken out and shot, or who came back after 20 years in a Siberian labor camp. And the reason is because of the democratic liberties that we have here, and those are things that we have to try. The reason why we have so much turmoil in the U.S. now is because people are so fixated on themselves, they don't understand what has been achieved in the United States, the model of peacefulness and democratic process, with all its faults, that protects us from the kind of things that happen in other countries.
It's almost like things are too good here. It's
Well,
almost
that's
like
part
life
of
is just too easy. We're just looking for problems. And
We
we're
look for problems, and we look for, because Americans, and it's an irony. They're looking for meaning, and they're looking in the wrong places. They want to give meaning to their lives, so they become extremists concerning diversity, climate change, gender equality, transgender rights, or whatever it happens to be. Not that those things are necessarily bad, or but they're trivial, and they don't touch on the real issues, which are the need for the United States to, and for the other democratic countries, the world countries like Great Britain, France, and other places, to kind of preserve a space in the world in which people can lead civilized lives and not live in fear.
Yeah, it's so troubling to see, some of the history of this part of the world, and watch some of the documentaries I've been watching the last couple of weeks, and then you see actors go on Twitter and try to call, some governor of a state in the U.S. a Nazi.
Oh, well, of course, this is all.
They're trying to redefine Nazis in the U.S. because we need that enemy. We need a villain.
We need to call people something, and we don't know what the real term refers to. It's unfortunate. I mean, and it's your generation that's being affected very much now by this. And why I'm involved in a couple things to try to raise the level of education so that we do have some awareness. I, for example, I grew up with the Cold War. I grew up with the legacy of the Second World War, the aftermath of Nazism when I was in my 20s. People in their 20s and 30s now, or not to mention teenagers. I mean, they don't have that experience, and what they never experienced, they have trouble imagining.
That's for sure.
I mean, in fact, that's partially what I try to do is with my writing, with the film, and with other things, is to provide those materials for those who are ready to benefit from it.